Okay, so this is the Apple Watch. This is what the Apple Watch first looked like when it was first released. It came out in April 2015, which was 8 years after the iPhone and 4 years after Steve Jobs died. We're now up to the Series 10 because Apple have released an update every single year. The original one didn't have a series number, we call it Series 0. Series 1 and 2 were released the following year. And then ever since, we've had another series watch up to Series 10, which is the latest and greatest. There's also a couple of variations. There's the Apple Watch SE, which is a cut down version with slightly limited features. And there's an Apple Watch Ultra, which is a ruggedized version. Um, it used to have a slightly bigger display, but the Series 10 display is actually slightly bigger. So the only reason to go for the Ultra is if you're a scuba diver or you want to be able to bash it around quite a lot and have something that's really sturdy. Oh, and it gives a 2 day battery life as well. So lots of models. They're all very, very similar. The basic design has not changed significantly since the first Apple Watch Sport, as they called it, in 2015. It came in two variants, 38 millimeter and 42 millimeter. The price was 259 and 299 back then. And the basic watch looks very, very similar. So as with most Apple devices, the bezels have got smaller, the display has got brighter, the speakers have got better, and it's just got more and more features. So the Series 10, although it looks virtually the same, has got so much more in it than that original Series 0. Apple also launched something called the Watch Edition in 2015. This was a 18 karat gold version, which was a brilliant marketing campaign. They sold it for, would you believe, £13,500, which is just
Crikey.
ludicrous. Um, but I think a lot of people saw it and they saw many celebrities wearing it. People like Beyonce used to wear it and so on. And people think, wow, well, that's a real aspirational item to have. Oh, look, I can buy one that looks almost the same for a mere £300. And I can even get it in a gold colour because they did gold coloured aluminium. So it can look almost the same. So I can't imagine anyone seriously paid that much money for an Apple Watch Series 0, especially when you know it's going to be obsolete within a year because they're bringing out something that's much better. So it's all very bizarre. Originally, we had the 42 millimeter and 38 millimeter. The 42 millimeter, the slightly bigger sizes have a better battery life. So it depends on the size of your wrist and to some degree your eyesight. So it's quite nice having the bigger screen if you need it for because of your eyesight, etc. So the original Apple Sport Watch was 42 millimeters high and 10.5 millimeters thick. The latest Series 10 is 46 millimeters high and slightly thinner at 9.7 millimeters. It's slightly heavier. So if you look at the thickness there, you can see the original sport watch, whichever model you got, whether you got the gold one or the um, steel one or the aluminium one, it was a fairly chunky beast. And the latest Series 10 is thinner. It's thinner than the Series 9 and it's quite a nice shape and size. It certainly feels very pleasant to wear on the wrist. The measurement you'll see when people talk about 46 millimeter or 42 millimeter, it's actually the height of the case because that's convention measurement, the conventional measurement, conventional way of measuring all watches. So it's the case height, it's not the screen size. So whereas with an iPhone or a MacBook or something, they will tell you the screen size, the diagonal measurement across the screen. Same with TVs. If you buy a 50-inch TV, it'll be 50 inches corner to corner. But the Apple Watch uses this vertical measurement, so just be aware of that. It's probably fairly similar. I've not checked, but it's probably a fairly similar measurement. The latest models are available in various sizes, so 40, 42, 44, 46, and 49 millimeters. So that's what they look like. So there on the left, you've got a 49, then a 46, and then a 40. There's thousands of combinations of watch faces and straps, so your watch can look completely unique and totally different to everybody else's watch. You'll see here we've got a variety of watch straps. We've got different faces. The face can be customized, so any Apple Watch can display any watch face, but then the strap is something you choose when you buy it, or you can buy an add-on strap later. There's hundreds of straps available. These are just some of the ones available from Apple. There's lots of third-party straps available too. Top left, you'll see something called the elastomer strap. It's just a basic plastic strap. It's very stretchy. It feels quite pleasant to wear. And the one big benefit of it is it's completely waterproof, so you can go swimming with it. And it's very easy to fasten, very comfortable on the wrist. They then do this thing called the Milanese loop, which is quite nice. It's kind of a magnetic fastening, but I find it a bit heavy, a bit unpleasant. The metal digs in a bit. They do a buckle, they do a leather loop, modern buckles, link bracelets, all sorts of fancy things. And you can get lots and lots of third-party straps as well. I would recommend you just go with the basic elastomer strap, which comes with the watch and is included in the price. If you go for a leather loop strap or a leather strap or something else, you'd probably be adding £100 to the cost. So it's probably not worth it. You can buy straps secondhand. You can always buy a new watch and secondhand strap if you want to. So there's actually a very nice Apple Watch designer available on the Apple website, which lets you try out different bodies, different straps, and different styles. And hopefully I can bring that up now and give you a quick demonstration. If you go to the Apple website and you go to watch and you look at compare. So there we've got 3 different models being compared. So, oh, wait a minute, sorry. That's the straps I was going to show you. Watch straps, that's what I wanted. And so here's some of the different straps you can get. And you can see some of the straps are quite expensive, so £99 for one of those. I've seen straps costing a lot more. This is the designer on the Apple website. So first of all, I can choose the size. So I'm going for a Series 10 Apple Watch. So first of all, let's choose the size. Do I want a 42mm or 46mm? Let's go with the 46mm. Then I can move on and choose the case. And there's various cases. So I can have a silver aluminium case, a gold aluminium case, jet black, natural titanium, or gold titanium. So let's go for this one. Let's go for a rose gold, say. And then I can choose the strap. And then this is quite nice because I can slide the straps along. So I can say, what does it look like with, how do I do it? There we go. Press those arrows. So I can have a grey strap, blue strap, yellow strap, braided strap, multicolored strap, and so on. So I can put them along like that. And then if I want to, I'll do Nike sports loops. There's the braided straps, stainless steel straps. And you'll see that puts the price up a lot. So if I go for a rose gold aluminium case with this stainless steel strap, the price has gone up to £6.79. But if you go for the basic 46mm, which is probably what most people want, you go for the basic aluminium case and you go for a standard sport loop or sport strap, sport band rather. There's the sport band with a buckle. Then that starts at £429. There's not much difference in the case prices. So if you go for a smaller case, you'll save about £30. So that's £429. Sorry, size. If we go for size, 42mm is £399. So £399 is the basic Apple Watch Series 10. That's the cheapest you can buy if you do want a Series 10. Or you can go pay an extra £30 and get the larger 46mm. So it's really down to personal preference. The cost difference is negligible. If you've got a small wrist and you're happy wearing a smaller watch, many people prefer the smaller watch, then that's a good one to go for. Although in fact, the small watch now is 42mm. When the Apple Watch was first launched 10 years ago, that was called the large size. So they did 38mm and 42mm. So what they now call small was actually their original large size. So it's interesting, just like the phones, everything's got a lot bigger. There's 3 basic models available today. We've got the Apple Watch SE, which starts at £219. We've got the Series 10, which I'm focusing on mainly tonight. That's £399. That's the really nice model with all the features. And then got the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which is their sport and adventure watch. So it's got a big 49 millimeter titanium case. It's got a brighter screen, um, and it's suitable for scuba diving down to 50 meters. The Series 10 can do snorkeling down to 6 meters, and the Apple Watch SE is waterproof, so you can go swimming with it. It's very useful for measuring lengths in the pool, but it doesn't have all the other features. The Apple Watch Series 10 and the Ultra 2 have a display that is always on. So whatever you're doing, if you glance down at your display, it's always on. Just like the latest iPhones have got an always on display. It might dim itself to save battery power, but if there's any movement or if you twist your wrist or raise your hand, then it detects that motion and the display comes on full brightness. The Apple Watch SE doesn't do that. So the display turns off when it's not in use. So you either have to tap the display or you just twist it or lift your wrist up or press a button and then that will activate the display. So that's one of the biggest differences with the Apple Watch SE. The display isn't as bright. It only comes in aluminium. It doesn't come in a titanium variant. And there's a few other differences that we'll cover later. If you are interested in buying an Apple Watch, it's worthwhile looking at older models. So Series 5 onwards is excellent, I think. And to be honest, the differences between Series 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are relatively small and not that significant. I had a Series 5 until recently, then I went to a Series 7. Was very happy with that. Going to a Series 10, it's slightly thinner, display's a bit brighter, a little bit bigger, but it's not a massive difference. So if you really want to save some money, then by all means shop around and look at the older models. They also come in different colours. So, have we got any questions first on the different variants of watches?
Or what about if you buy an older watch, what's the battery life like on them?
That is a concern, and that's a good point. So I wouldn't buy one that's too old. And if you did buy an Apple Watch, I would also always ask for the battery health figure. So if you go into settings, then it will tell you the battery health there as a percentage. And if it's 85%, that's probably okay. If it's much below 85%, it's probably going to need a new battery soon. And getting a new battery is quite difficult. It's not something many people can fit. And generally, what you do is you take your watch into an Apple store and they will arrange for it either to have a replacement battery or more often than not, they might just give you a swapped out Apple Watch. They might give you a different watch. I think they do normally fit batteries, but it can be quite expensive. So that's definitely something to look for. Obviously, if you get a brand new watch, you don't need to worry about a battery. If you're buying something that's a year or two old, then you're probably okay. But if you're buying something much older than that, you do need to check the battery life. So that's a good point. Any more questions before I move on?
Yeah, Jill, would you like to unmute and just throw that question at Paul?
Yes, hello, Paul. I bought myself a Series 10 watch before uh, going to have surgery recently because I thought it would be a good way of answering phone calls easily.
Sure.
I can't always see the display when I raise my hand. I often have to press the crown button. I don't know why that is. Do you?
If it's in battery saving mode, if it's got a low battery, because if the battery's less than 20% or you've told it to go into battery saving mode, then the display will turn off.
Right,
Um,
yes.
if it's in theatre mode, then the display will turn off. And I know some people, it's very easy to go into the control center. I can perhaps give a quick demonstration later. If you go into theatre mode, you can leave it in that mode, and then the display is completely off, and lots of things work differently, and the watch goes silent. And I've seen people walking around. I said, "Well, you've got a brand new Series 10 watch. Why is the display not on?" And when I look at it, it's because they've accidentally turned on theatre mode. Um, I
Done
wonder
so.
if I can just give you a quick demonstration of that. So this is an Apple Watch simulator that I've got running here. So you can see it's displaying the time. If I press this side button, then you'll see here it's saying this is called the control center. You'll see it's got 100% battery life. If I then turn this wheel, which I should be able to do, I think, there we go, then you'll see there's a theatre mode there. If I turn on theatre mode, or cinema mode they call it, I think it's called theatre mode in the UK, cinema mode in America, then that will turn the display off. So if you've got this little symbol here and it's lit up, that'll be in theatre mode, then display will be off. So that's something that I've seen people turn on accidentally. So if you just tap it, it will say theatre mode or cinema mode off. And that could explain it. Or the other thing is if you go into that screen again, I think sometimes you might have a low battery display or a battery indicator. Yeah, low power mode. If I turn on low power mode, then that will cause the display to turn off. So that's another thing that could cause what you're seeing. So I'll check those two settings. What does it do? Well, it does just about everything. It tells the time, which you might expect from a watch. Not only does it tell the time, the time is incredibly accurate. They always claimed it was the most accurate watch in the world. So it synchronizes the time from the internet, so it's accurate to something like 20 milliseconds, and that's kind of guaranteed. And as long as it's got an internet connection, it sets that time, and it is always spot on. So you know you've got a really reliable time device. It's got alarms, so you can set an alarm to wake yourself up. It's got a stopwatch. It's got a countdown timer, so you can time an egg boiling. It's got a calculator, obviously, because who would be without a calculator watch these days? So you've got a calculator on your wrist. And it's got Siri, which is extremely useful. So it's got all the normal Siri functions you're used to on an iPhone. So you can control home automation. You can ask it for directions. You can ask it to play music. You can ask it to convert grams to ounces. Just everything that you've got on Siri. You can ask it whether it's going to snow and so on. It's got notifications. Now, notifications are really nice because you can put your phone down, forget about your phone, and the watch will either ping if you've got the sound turned on, but whether you've got sound turned on or not, it will tap you. So it's what they call a haptic feedback. And instead of feeling like a vibration, it does feel like a little tap. So it just kind of gets your attention. And you're always aware of it. So you can be in a meeting, you can be talking to somebody, you can be walking down the street, and you just get this little tap on your wrist. And if you just glance at your watch, you'll see what the notification was. And the notifications are really flexible. So you can either say, tell me all the notifications that I see on my phone and mirror the phone, and then it relies on the phone configurations, or you can set notifications separately purely for the Apple Watch, because you probably don't want to be notified every time you get an email. You know, if you're like me, you might get an email every 10 minutes, and that's just intrusive and mostly junk and irrelevant. So you don't want to be notified when you get an email, but you might say, I do want to be notified if I get an email from a VIP. So if I've nominated someone as VIP, I do want to respond to their email straight away. It might be a paying customer or something like that. Or you can then say, I want to be notified when I get a message from somebody, whether it's text message or an iMessage. Some notifications will always notify you. So if it's an alarm, the alarm would always go off regardless of what you're doing. It's also got messages and email. So you can read all of your messages directly on the watch. You can send messages from the watch. You've got email, you can even send email from the watch. And the input is really flexible. So you can either draw on the screen, you can draw letter shapes on the screen, you can bring up a little keyboard, or you can just talk to it. And I nearly always talk to it. I hardly ever try and write a message. It's just far too tedious compared with Siri and dictation. It can make phone calls. Now, they do two versions of the Apple Watch, which we'll look at later. So the basic Apple Watch is just Wi-Fi, and the cellular version, which is an extra £100, gives you cellular capability. And that's really clever because that can then use your existing phone number in your Apple Watch to make and receive phone calls. You can either do it James Bond style, where you just lift your watch to your mouth and talk directly into it, or you can use AirPods. And the AirPods is fantastic. So if you've got this cellular version, you can make and receive phone calls and send and receive messages without your iPhone because it will just do it over the cellular data network. But if you've only got the basic iPhone, surprisingly, you can still make phone calls providing you've got a Wi-Fi connection, and then it will use your iPhone. So if you're at home and your phone is on charge in the kitchen and you're upstairs in the bedroom and you get an incoming phone call, the phone call will ring on your watch. You can answer it on your watch while you're walking down to get your phone, or if it's a short call, just talk on the watch and just say yes, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And it works extremely well. And phone calls, the quality is good. It works well. You need a reasonable signal to make it work, but otherwise it's great. And if you use AirPods, you get really good quality. So I can actually go out, I can be running through the park, I'll receive a phone call, I'll probably be listening to music anyway on my AirPods. Um, the watch says, do you want to answer the call? I can say yes, or I can tap to answer, and I can talk to the person that has called me. And it's really nice just having that capability without carrying your phone around all the time. So phone calls are fantastic. It also does FaceTime, doesn't do video, it doesn't have a camera built in, but just do FaceTime audio. It can play music, it can play podcasts and audiobooks. Unfortunately, it can't do BBC Sounds, so you can't get all the BBC Sounds things on it, which is really sad. I wish they did do that. I think it's just a BBC paranoia thing. They want to insist that you use their BBC Sounds app on an iPhone, and they don't have a variant of it for the Apple Watch. It's got lots of health and fitness features, which we'll look at in a minute. That's absolutely amazing. It's got weather built in. It's got Apple Pay, so you can use it to pay bills, pay in shops, etc. You can use it for controlling home automation. You can just tap to turn your lights on and off, set your heating temperature, turn on your kettle, whatever it is you've got, whatever home automation you've got. It's got Shazam. I don't know if you've heard of Shazam. It's a music recognition feature. So you can say, what is this music? What's playing now? And if there's some music playing on TV or playing over a speaker somewhere in a pub, it'll tell you the artist and the name of the song. Phones can do that, but it's just nice having it on your watch. You don't need to get your phone out. It's got Apple TV control, so you can use it as remote control for Apple TV. And it can control the iPhone camera. That's quite a nice feature. So if you want to take a group photo, you set up your iPhone on a table, propped up, pointing at the group. You go and sit down, and then you can tap the screen to take a photo. Even better than that, you get a preview on your Apple Watch screen of what your iPhone camera is seeing. So you can see exactly what's going on, and they can trigger it to start recording video, take a photograph, etc. It's got a loudness meter built in, so you can measure the ambient noise level. If you're at a concert, I often go to concerts, it'll often say, warning, the background level is over 90 decibels. This could cause temporary hearing loss. So it might say it's over 100 decibels, and you get a little haptic feedback. It taps you on your wrist and just alerts you to the fact that you're in a very loud environment, as if you didn't know. But it can be nice knowing the actual noise level. So it's a useful measure. If you get the Apple Watch Series 10 or the Apple Watch Ultra, you also get a depth gauge. So on the Apple Watch Series 10, it's good for snorkeling, but only down to 6 meters. If you get the Apple Watch Ultra 2, like John, I think John's got the Apple Watch Ultra, then you can use it for scuba diving down to 50 meters, and it'll measure your depth. And it will also work as a dive computer, so it'll tell you how long you can stay at each depth before you need to ascend to avoid getting the bends. And finally, it's got hundreds and hundreds of third-party applications. So it's very flexible. You can put banking applications on it, third-party fitness measurement, dozens and dozens of apps. Not every app has got an equivalent Apple Watch app, but many of them do have. So I'll go into more detail on the features through the next few slides. It's very customizable. So you can change the watch face to look like anything you want. So you've got all these different features. You can have a photograph, you can use one of your own photographs, you can use the Snoopy cartoons, they're quite cute. There's got little Snoopy animations. You can choose different textiles, um, different watch faces, and you can have a lot more on the screen if you want to. So here we have some typical watch faces. You can have some that look like a traditional watch with hands and a second hand. You can have digital watch faces and all these other little things in the corners. These are what's called complications. So traditionally, an old-fashioned analog watch would have a complication for the date, and it might have a complication that told you the current day, and it might have a complication for um, a timer or something like that. So Apple have used that term. They call these complications, and you can customize which complication you have within reason. So they give you a few basic watch faces, and each watch face you can customize the look, the feel, the color, and the complications on that watch face. There's a Mickey Mouse one where he taps his foot and moves his arms to indicate the time. You can have a basic plain one, as you can see bottom right. That's just showing you the time and the date. And it's very easy to switch between them. You just swipe left and right and you can choose. There's an animated butterfly watch face, so you can easily just move between these watch faces. There's the Mickey Mouse one. There's a couple more. And here we've got a complication that tells you the next flight. So I think that's from San Francisco going to somewhere else, gate 88. So that's a little flight app that's filling in those details for you. So if you're at an airport, it might detect you at an airport and automatically tell you where your flight is and what time it's leaving, whether it's delayed. We've got Siri built in, as I mentioned. I won't attempt to say that, but you can ask it what time it is in another country and all the usual Siri features. And then we've got Apple Pay. Apple Pay is superb on the watch. It's just a very convenient way of paying. What you do is you link in one or more of your credit or debit cards to your Apple Watch, just as you do with an iPhone. It's very easy to operate. You just double tap the button on the right-hand side. There's no PIN, no fingerprint required. It's that simple. Just a double tap and you're straight in and your default credit card appears. And then you can turn the scroll wheel to choose a different card if you want to. It's very secure. And you might think, well, how is it secure? But if somebody snatches the watch off you, it detects it's no longer on your wrist and resets. It goes into a locked mode. So it will insist that you enter a PIN before you can use it. And you can have a 4-digit PIN, 6-digit PIN, 8-digit PIN, whatever. And until that PIN is entered correctly, the watch is unusable and you can't use it for payments. If you have 3 wrong attempts, then you have to wait a minute before you can try again. And then it goes to 5 minutes and 10 minutes and so on. So the security is very good. If you want to pay in a shop, it's superb. It's just anywhere where they accept contactless will accept an Apple Watch payment. So someone says, that'd be £10, please. You do a tap tap on the watch, hold it out. I normally leave my sleeve down. You don't have to touch it, doesn't have to make contact. Just hold it near to the reader. And quite often, normally I leave my sleeve down just in case I bump into the reader. I don't want to be scratching my watch. So just go tap tap, and there you go. And it's that easy. I don't believe it's that widely used in America. So bizarrely, America's a long way behind the UK in that respect. I think we adopted contactless payment very early. I think we were one of the first countries to do it. And I think it's hardly anywhere now that doesn't accept contactless payment. I mean, even market stalls and pretty much everywhere you go, you get street buskers that accept contactless payment. So in the UK, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And then if you did want to choose a different card, you can turn what they call the digital crown. So the knob on the side is called digital crown because a watch has a traditional crown. If you rotate that crown, that scrolls down, or you can slide the touch screen, just push the screen up with your finger. And I've got about 5 cards. I've got my credit card, I've got a debit card. I've also got a business debit card. So if I want to buy something and the business is paying for it, I'm buying some stationery in the shop, I would choose my TSB business account instead of my default account. So you can choose which card you pay for things. And if I go into Marks and Spencer's, I use my Marks and Spencer's card because I get a bit of cash back with it and so on. You can also use it on the London Underground and other transit systems. And there it's even easier because you don't even need to press the button on the side. You don't need to wake it up. You don't need to tap it. You don't need to authenticate. You don't need to enter a passcode, open a wallet, or do anything. All you do is put your wrist down on top of that reader that you've seen everywhere in London Underground, and it'll immediately connect and debit your card. You can nominate a particular card to use for what they call transit systems. So I would say my Barclays card is my default card for use to use for transit, and then you don't, if you're carrying things, it doesn't matter. You don't need to press the side button. You just hold your wrist there and it works. So that's really convenient. And that happens in other countries as well.
Paul, there's a little question from Stan who says, my watch is 2018. Does it have Apple Pay? Do you know?
Yes, they all do, going back.
Brilliant.
I think
Thank you.
all the way to the very first one. Certainly Series 2 does. So Series 1 does. I think the very first one does. Yes, it absolutely does.
Thank you.
You just need to go into the Apple Watch app on your phone and you can configure it all there and you can add cards and so on. And if you've already got cards on your phone, it'll offer to download them and link them. And sometimes you might have to get a text message from your bank, or you might just have to go through an authentication process. And very occasionally you might need to call your bank, but once it's added, then it will just work. Yeah. And it's one of the most popular features. It's one of the things I use on my Apple Watch all the time. And I'd never pay with anything with my iPhone. I don't use cash. I don't use cards. I just use my watch for absolutely everything. And I think even if the watch battery's flat, this transit payment still works. So it's got a tiny bit of reserve power that it keeps for using this transit system. So if you're on the London Underground, your watch goes flat, you can still get out of the Underground. It'll still work.
Wow.
Okay, health and fitness. So this is the next big thing. It's a fantastic device. It's got so much built into it. It's just staggering that they've built all this into something the size of a watch. So it's got an accelerometer built in. So that means it knows which way round the orientation is because it can detect gravity. It knows which way is up and which way is down. So it knows when you lift your arm and it can sense the movement. It's got a gyroscope in it, so it can sense which way your arm is rotating. So it's got a three-dimensional gyroscope, just like getting a plane. It's got a heart rate monitor, which is just magic. It just shines this green light into your skin and somehow measures your heart rate magically, extremely accurately. It's just absolutely spot on because the heart rate's fairly as long as it can detect the pulse, and it always does, then it works. And it's remarkable because it can measure the heart rate even if you're running. If I go out running and my watch is bouncing around on my wrist, it still measures my heart rate. I might have to just tighten the strap just a fraction just to make sure it's got that constant contact with my wrist. And it just works. It works when you're swimming, so it can measure heart rate in a swimming pool when you're doing breaststroke or front crawl and your arms splashing in and out of the water. It still measures your heart rate. So it's stunning. Series 5 onwards, but not the SE, has got electrocardiogram, which I'll show you in a second. And that measures the waveform of the electricity being generated by your heart. It's, again, just staggering how well it works. Series 6 onwards gives you something called a blood oximeter, which measures the amount of oxygen in your blood. Now, I think that's a bit gimmicky. I don't find it especially useful. Whenever I measure the blood oxygen level, it's always 98, 99, or 100%, which is good. It means I've got oxygen in my blood, so I'm alive. The only time I've seen that go low is when I was really ill with COVID. And interestingly, my watch said your blood oxygen level is down to 90%. So it can be useful for that. I've compared it. I've got a blood oxygen meter, a blood oximeter that I bought from Amazon. It clips onto the end of your finger, shines a pulse through. If you've been in hospital, you've probably had them on the end of your finger. And it generally gives the same result. So it's pretty good. I find it a little bit unreliable. Sometimes I'll do the measurement and it will say measurement failed and you have to do it again. But if you're fit and healthy, it always says 98, 99%. And if I hold my breath or I go running and work out as hard as I can, it hardly ever falls below 98%. So in practical terms, unless you're ill, and it's probably not especially useful. And if you're that ill, you're probably in hospital. So they're monitoring for you. So I wouldn't worry too much. And actually that's useful because in America, it's had to be disabled. There was a patent challenge. There's another company that measures blood oxygen, and they challenged Apple and it went to court. And the result was that Apple turned that feature off for all new watches. If you've got an old watch that had the feature when you bought it, that'll stay in place. But if you've got a new Apple Watch, if you buy an Apple Watch now in America, you will not get the blood oxygen meter. In the rest of the world, it does work because the patent was only in America. It also estimates your steps and your calories. So it does that using the accelerometer, the gyroscope, and the heart rate monitor. So it knows how active you are. It measures your walking. So it can work out when you're walking, can measure your pace and your steps. It presents badges for awards. That's quite nice. So if you do so much exercise in a day, or if you complete all 3 rings, which I'll show you in a minute, you get a little badge and you feel good about yourself. So it's what they call gamifications to encourage you to stay fit. So it's not just for fitness fanatics. It tells you to stand up. If you've been sitting down for too long, it says stand up and walk around for 2 minutes. And it's just useful seeing how many steps you've done. And I think it encourages everyone just to get that little bit of exercise. It's got thousands of different modes and displays. It's so difficult covering everything the Apple Watch does in this talk. So by default, it measures your heart rate every few minutes. If you're doing a workout and you tell it you're doing a workout, like a run or a walk or row machine, then it measures your heart rate every few seconds. It automatically gives you an alert if your heart rate goes too high for no reason. So if you're sitting still and your heart rate goes above 100 or whatever you set it to, you get an alert. It says your heart rate has suddenly gone very high for no obvious reason because you're not exercising. The only time it's done that with me is when I had COVID. So I had COVID, my heart rate went up to 110, just sitting in bed, not doing anything. So that was very strange. So it can be useful for that. But then it measures the heart rate over the day. So you can see, if you look at the top right graph, that's my heart rate. I think that was today. It varied between 59 and 93 beats per minute. If I was running upstairs or walking around the house, it might go up to 93. At rest, it was about 59. Bottom left graph, you can see my resting heart rate. That was 68 beats per minute. It did go up to 90 or so at some points. It went down to about 50 something. And then, that's the same as the other one. This is how you do an electrocardiogram. So normally an electrocardiogram measures the pulses and the electricity being generated in your heart to see how well your heart is working. And normally in hospital, they would use 4 wires. That's called a 4-wire ECG. The Apple Watch is the equivalent of what they call a 2-wire ECG. So it's not as fancy and as sophisticated as what you get in hospital. It can't measure both chambers of the heart, but it does give you some basic indication. So it's quite a clever feature, and I think here's a little video. So this is one of the watch faces. This is a cute one with Snoopy. I press the button to get into the menu of apps. I scroll down, touch the ECG app, and now it says hold your finger on the digital crown. You hold your finger on for 30 seconds, and it's now measuring my heart. And you can see the waveform just as you would in hospital on the ECG meter. It doesn't check for heart attacks, so you can't use it to tell whether someone's had a heart attack or not. You can see top left, it's telling me my heart rate is 70 beats per minute. And when it finishes, it'll give me a little summary. And it's a bit boring, really, because it just says sinus rhythm, no signs of atrial fibrillation, which is good because it means I'm not ill. A few people have bought an Apple Watch and said, this doesn't work. It keeps telling me I've got atrial fibrillation. I need to see a GP. they go to their doctor, the doctor checks it out and says, yes, you've got a serious problem with your heart and it could be fatal. So there's many people who realise they've got this condition called atrial fibrillation, because how many people have an ECG every day or every year even? And a lot of people have discovered they've got this condition, and then it's fairly easily treated. I think you can either have medication or, in worst case, you have a pacemaker fitted, but it has saved people's lives. So it's a nice thing to have. If you're fit and healthy, it'll probably never ever tell you you've got atrial fibrillation, and that's good. It does sleep tracking, so it can tell how long you're awake for, how deep your sleep was. So in this example, it's saying I was awake for 6 minutes. My REM sleep that's light sleep when your eyelids are flickering and you're probably dreaming. That's 1 hour and 45 minutes. My core sleep was nearly 5 hours. My deep sleep was 37 minutes. And then bottom right, fortunately, that's not from my watch. The latest Apple Watch Series 10 can detect a condition called sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a condition where you stop breathing. So it's especially common in people who are overweight or heavy snorers. If you snore badly, sometimes, and especially if you've had some alcohol, that can make it worse. Your throat can close up and you can actually stop breathing for a few seconds or even a minute. And that can be dangerous. And what would normally happen is your brain would realize something's wrong and wake you up. But it is a serious condition. It might need treating. So the Apple Watch Series 10 attempts to detect sleep apnea. And it's very clever how it does it, because it's basically using an accelerometer to detect the movement of your body and breathing. It's using the heart rate monitor to see, and maybe the microphone. I'm not quite sure, probably not. But it's amazing how much they can get out of these sensors and just exactly what they can track. And it can even track your breathing. So it will track your breathing rate overnight. And to track your breathing overnight, it's simply looking at the way the watch is moving from the accelerometer and the angle of the what your hand is at. And it's detecting the slightest change, which is indicating your breathing rhythm. So it can actually work out how many breaths per second, or breath per minute rather, you're using overnight. So phenomenal capability, and it's potentially life-saving. Have you got any questions so far on the health apps?
Mike, it's me, it's John Sharman. On
Hi,
all these
John.
tricky measurements and that, do these have any capability with the medical profession? Are they agree with them, or do they think that's just a bit of Apple stuff?
No, absolutely. So no, that's a good question. Um, no, it's a fully approved ECG. So it's fully medically approved, and it was actually released in stages. So first they got approval in America, then they released it in the UK, and it's got approval in most countries around the world, and people trust it. And if you do get, if you do that ECG test and it says you've got a problem, I think you detected atrial fibrillation, tell your GP on your phone, you can just generate a report and it will just produce this PDF. A beautiful display, graphs of your heart, indications, all the measurements, everything. And it says, email this to your GP. And then you can email it and they probably get them every week and say, oh, yeah, another crazy Apple Watch user, but I better take it seriously because I know they're generally right. And yeah, and then they'll just refer you on to get further tests. So it's an initial indication. I mean, you shouldn't rely on it completely. And if it says everything's okay, but you don't feel everything is okay, then obviously you still go to your GP. But yeah, it is absolutely trusted and people do use it and rely on it. And certainly all the tests I've done, I've often compared it with professional heart rate monitors. It's always exactly the same. The blood oxygen is pretty good. I don't trust the blood oxygen quite so much. I think that's a harder thing to measure and it's less useful. But generally, when I've checked it, and like I say, the only time it's gone low is when I've had COVID and it agreed with my, professional blood oxygen meter that I bought. So yeah, it is very good and it is trusted.
Paul, it's Stan here.
And
I've never used the sleep tracking before. Do you have to activate it, or does it normally come on if
no,
you wear it in
no,
bed?
it's just magic. It just works it out. It knows when you're sleeping. It's just, yeah.
Mm,
it's like, what
That's
is it? It's like,
no, that's not
no,
true. You have to
it
have
does say,
sleep. You have to have sleep focus turned on. Otherwise, it will not track your sleep.
do you? You
Yes.
might be right. Because I automatically have sleep tracking turned on. Well, I've got my sleep tracking set.
Sleep
So after
focus. So
11,
sleep yeah, you have to turn on sleep focus or it will
yeah,
not track your sleep.
okay, I stand corrected. So my sleep focus turns on automatically at 11 p.m. So on the Apple Watch, you've got, just like on your iPhone, you've got these focus modes. So you can say do not disturb, or you can create your own focus modes. I've got a personal one, a work one, and so on. And there's Apple provide a sleep one, and you have to put it into sleep mode. Um, but I do that on a timer, or I think in the clock app, it's scheduled. So at 11 p.m., it automatically goes into sleep focus. So that's for the standard Apple Watch built-in sleep tracking. There's also a whole range of third-party sleep apps, and I think they must work in the same way. So when you're in sleep focus, then they measure your sleep, and some of them do slightly different measurements and do things slightly differently.
I've noticed that I have got sleep tracking turned on, but I've noticed that it will often expand the range of when I'm asleep. If I oversleep, it will track after, after the sleep
Yes,
tracking period is finished, and it will still say you were asleep for an extra half hour.
yes.
And it'll also sometimes do it before the sleep tracking period comes on if I fall asleep in front of the telly before I go to bed.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's
that's interesting.
not quite as clear cut
That,
as that.
that that's a new feature of iOS 18. It will now track whenever you take a nap.
Okay, that's useful to know.
Yes, I love this feature. Absolutely love it.
Mm. It's so much of it is just magic. It just works so well. So shall we move on to workouts? Um, Workouts are fantastic. So, whether you're a really sporty person or not especially sporty, it becomes quite addictive. It's just something you want to do. Um, so these are the workouts you can track. It does running, indoor cycling. Um, I think they do kickboxing. I'm not quite sure. Rowing machines, um, cross trainers, cycling, swimming, stair steppers, and hiking. So they've got all these different modes, and you can either just open up the activity app and tell it what you're doing, or you can talk to it and you just say, "Hey," and then her name, start running, or start outdoor cycle, or start pool swim, or whatever it is you're doing, and it will just start it. You get a 3 second countdown, and it just works, and it's fantastic. And here's just some of the displays. So here's a running app. In this case, this wasn't me, but it says this person's been running for 31 minutes and 47 seconds. Their heart rate is up to 148 beats per minute, which puts them in what they call zone three because their resting heart rate is quite low. And it just says this is how hard you're working out. And you probably don't want to be going to zone four, maybe. So you might say, I want to do my main workout in zone three. And it tells you average beats per minute. Here's another display. It tells you average pace. So it's taking, is that 5 minutes, 22 seconds to do a mile, or no, to do a kilometer, I think. So that just tells you how fast you're running over the last kilometer. Here's another one. This is if you tell it you're running a certain distance. Say you're in a half marathon, it tells you how far you've got left to run, and so on. So you've got all these different displays, and it's all very configurable. And the really clever thing that Apple introduced right from day one was these three rings. So these are activity rings. So you've got three different colors. The red one tells you how much movement you've done today. And that's basically an estimate of how many calories you're burning. So they say, even if you're sitting still in a chair, just watching TV, you're burning some calories, but they don't measure that. This is the movement calories. This is how many calories you've burnt through some kind of active movement. So that might be walking, might be walking around the house, walking to town, whatever. And it looks at your heart rate, it looks at your activity, looks at the accelerometer to work out how much you're moving around, and estimates the calories that you've burnt through active calories. Then you can set a target. So you can say, I want to burn 400 calories a day or 600 calories a day. And then if you complete that, it completes that red ring. That red ring will go all the way around and complete, which is great. The exercise ring, again, you can set it to how much exercise you want to do. General advice is you should do 30 minutes exercise a day. That's at least a brisk walk or some kind of exercise, doesn't matter what it is. And if you do 30 minutes, then the exercise ring is closed. And you can change the time. I think 30 minutes is the lowest, but you can change it to 40 minutes, an hour, whatever you want. And then the stand ring measures how many hours you've been standing. And the target is to get to 13. So you must stand at least once every hour for 13 hours during the day. And if you go to the toilet at 4 in the morning, that still counts. That counts as being standing, but you must do it at least 13 out of the 24 hours to complete that stand ring. And if you complete all 3 rings, you get an alert and it buzzes. And it's, oh, well done. You've completed all 3 rings and you feel really good about yourself. And it's just great. It does encourage you. It really encourages you. If you go to bed and you haven't completed all the rings, you feel a bit sad. And sometimes at 8 o'clock, it says, come on, you can still do it. You don't have much to do. And he's run up and down stairs a couple of times. You think, yeah, I've done it. And then you get badges for other things. So if you manage to do, your 30 minutes exercise every day for a week, you get a little 3D badge, a little gold badge. And it spins round. It's got your name on it. It says, well done, Paul. You did exercise every day for 7 days. And again, you feel good about yourself. It really works. So, even if it just encourages you to do an extra 10 minutes activity each day, it's great. It's brilliant. So yeah, people get very addicted to it. It's really nice. And Apple tell you should aim to complete all 3 rings, and you quickly learn what the colours mean and what it's all about. So you get your move goal, your exercise goal, and your stand goal. It automatically measures steps and distance. So you can see here it's telling you how many steps you've done. You see there it says 2,408 steps, 1.12 miles. So all of that is measured. All of this information is synced to your phone. So you go into the health app on the phone, and all of this is there. You can see everything that you've done, and it's also available on the Apple Watch. This is what you see on your phone. So this is a display. I recorded this earlier. That's what the rings look like. So you see Wednesday today, I didn't do much. I've scrolled back to Tuesday, I didn't do much Tuesday. Monday, I didn't do much. Sunday, I didn't complete all my rings. So I'm looking really bad. Then you get to Friday, I did a bit better on Friday. And then you get to Thursday and it goes round and round and round. Then you feel really good about it. And if you look at that, it's that I've burnt 1,000 calories out of my 600 calorie target. I did 90 minutes of exercise. My target's only 40 minutes. I stood for 15 hours. I did 5,800 steps, 2.7 miles, and I climbed 19 flights of stairs. And I also did let's see, I did a pool swim, so 1.6 kilometers. I did 2 cycle rides of about a mile. So I'm showing you this because that's my best day this month, I think. It's not normally that good. But the stairs is amazing. It actually measures flights of stairs. And it does that because it's got a barometer included in it. Just another little measurement they happen to include, and it measures the air pressure. And when you walk up a flight of stairs, the combination of a change in air pressure and the accelerometer and everything else is all put together, and it works out that you've climbed a flight of stairs. And I've tested it, and as far as I can see, it's pretty accurate. It might miss the odd flight, and if you've got 2 flights instead of 1, it might not always count that. But generally, it's really, really good. So just amazing. And then you get all the graphs on your phone. If you've got some electronic scales linked to the internet, why things make some, then it tracks your weight in the health app, tracks the calories that you're using, and it always works really well. Got any questions on health and fitness? Well,
Yeah.
move on.
Susan, shared an amazing story with me before the meeting started. Susan, would you be prepared to unmute and just tell that story to everybody? Just share that horrendous tale.
Okay, yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi. I was charging my phone in one room and charging my watch in a different room. And I had just had back surgery 5 days before. And I tripped and fell on the floor. And I was on my floor for 2 days before someone called on the telephone instead of texting. And I yelled at Siri to answer the phone. So then has followed a year of recovering from that. Had I been wearing my watch or been with my phone, I could have called, or with the watch, I could have contacted someone right away from my floor and asked them to get someone to help me up. And I've actually since then, a number of people who've heard this have bought Alexa or Siri. They've bought, yes, monitors to have in the home, HomePods and stuff because now I know I can yell out to Siri, to my HomePod in another room and have it call. But I didn't know that at the time. So the watch, though, I've used it during COVID because according to emergency room doctors here in the States, that the blood oxygen level in people who showed up in the hospital from COVID was low. And that was to them a diagnostic tool for whether or not they had COVID. So I was using the blood oxygen level on my watch to help me determine whether or not I had caught COVID-19. And then I had surgery 3 summers ago. And after the surgery, I was getting warnings about atrial fibrillation on my telephone, for which I am now treated. But and I don't know how the surgery caused atrial fibrillation, but so the watch, I actually bought a watch Series 8, a used one, so that I can wear a watch at all time of the night and day. And because to me, living by myself, it just makes sense to be wearing something that I can use to call for help if I need it. So it's been very useful. The blood oxygen and the electrocardiogram features have been important. There's a falling feature, and so far I haven't needed that since I did fall, but that does come up every so often when there's some strange movement. My watch will ask me if I fell, and then give me options of what to do in order to whether or not I need help, to call 911 here in the States, or no, I didn't fall, you just misread. So I really think it's been extraordinarily helpful to have. And as a single person living by myself, I think I find it really useful to have around. So that's my story. I'm a big advocate of the Apple Watch.
You should be an Apple ambassador. No, that's an amazing story, and thank you very much indeed for sharing it.
Sure.
Sheeta, I know Sheeta's here. Sheeta can tell you wonderful stories about falls because I understand that sometimes when you're playing tennis, it completely misinterprets what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
It has with some people because they'll say that they're doing a sport and the Apple Watch will ask them if they've fallen. What I suggested to them was that when you start an activity, physically start an activity on your watch so that it'll know
Right,
you're doing an
right.
activity
Yeah.
instead of falling. Because I have fallen and I did fall a couple of years ago and injured myself and I was dazed. And the one thing that I do remember was that the Apple Watch was tapping me on my wrist. And being dazed, it was the only thing that caught my attention. I had people around me, but I don't recall if they were saying anything to me. But the Apple Watch just kept tapping and tapping. And I'm thinking, what is that annoying thing? And it was getting my attention, asking me if I was okay. And it is, I don't understand why everyone doesn't have one of these. When you're in a car accident, my husband was in a car accident this year, and his iPhone did the same thing. It uh, made noises and alerted him that if he did not say he was okay, that it would call 911. He stopped it and actually called me. So again, I have a friend another tennis friend. He fell and was in his garage for 4 days. It is a miracle he didn't die. I don't understand why everyone doesn't have one of these.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Thank you.
I know lots of people are buying them for elderly relatives because it's
Sure.
just such a fantastic thing. You've got it on your wrist, and also if you just touch and hold the bottom right button, then it will automatically dial emergency services in your country.
mhm,
So in
mhm.
America, it dials 911. In the UK, it dials 999. And basically, you touch and hold that button, and I can do it now so you can hear it, and you'll hear a sound. I've got a countdown. Five, four, three, two, and I'm going to let go now. Otherwise, it will dial 999. So just, all you need to do, you don't even need to speak. You just dial and then it connects you. Once it's done that, it also sends a message to your nominated loved ones or next of kin or whoever to say you've just made an emergency call or you've had an accident, you've had a fall, and then it shares your location. It says, it will say Paul's had a fall at this location and he's not responding. And to follow on from your stories, I do a fair bit of cycling. I was cycling down a steep hill. I hit a pothole at the bottom, I was braking hard for some traffic lights, hit a pothole. The bike falls into the pothole. The back wheel comes up and goes bang back on the ground. And straight away, the Apple Watch taps me and says, "It looks like you've had a fall. Are you okay?" And I was fine, so I just cancelled it. But if I hadn't cancelled it, it would then have gone into that countdown and played the sound. Another accident I had, I was on a tandem. The tandem skidded on some oil going around a sharp corner. We hit the ground quite hard. And again, my Apple Watch called 999. And it actually got as far as the siren before I realised what was going on. I managed to cancel it and we crawled over to the pavement. But we both got concussion. Now, the funny story is, a couple of people, passerbys, come and rescue us and talk to us, and they call for an ambulance. It might be 5 hours. So, I don't know whether it's much better in America, but certainly
Mhm.
UK, if they get an emergency call from an Apple Watch, there's no guarantee that emergency services are going to arrive within 10 minutes. And if it's an Apple Watch, they might say, oh, it's probably a false alarm and not even bother. So how much you can trust it, I don't know. But I
It-
agree with you. It is potentially life-saving. And if you're
it-
conscious, then absolutely you can call someone. And if your watch calls 999, and even if you can groan at them, they'll probably take it seriously. So yes, I think it is incredibly useful. Yeah. And it has
Can
saved
I
lots
add,
of people's lives.
can I add one more thing about
Sure.
for the elderly? They don't have to have an iPhone. you can buy them an Apple Watch and set up the Apple Watch on your phone. So if you don't live with them and they fall, you will
That's right.
still get a message and they'll get a message as well.
Brilliant.
Yes.
And I think
yes,
that's
definitely.
great as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Dale has a hand in the air, and after that, I think it's getting late. I think we probably need to then pass the meeting back to Paul. But Dale, fire away.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer the additional advice in this same line. The recommendation of wearing your watch in the shower. That's where most people fall in their house. And if you're alone and you fall in the shower, you can easily get in a situation where you really need help. So recommend that you wear it in the shower.
I confess that's the only time I take it off, because I was concerned about getting shampoo and detergent into the watch seals and damaging it. So I do take mine off, but I'm sure you're right. I think it's probably a good idea.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Right.
Over to you, Paul.
Probably half an hour left, Mike. Is that okay? Do you want a quick 5 minute
no,
break?
yeah,
Press on?
no, 9:15 is fine. Please carry on.
Okay, great. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the features of the Apple Watch. One thing I've not really mentioned the controls very much. On the right-hand side, you've got this, what you can see, a digital crown, which you can use for scrolling up and down. You can press it in and out, and you can rotate it just as you would a normal watch. Underneath that bottom right, you can't see it because it's recessed on the latest model. There's a little button you can press, and it's got a speaker built in. So the speaker's used for alarms. It can play music, podcasts, audiobooks, etc. On early Apple Watches, it could only do that through AirPods. So you would use AirPods with it. The AirPods are automatically paired with the Apple Watch. You tell it to play some music, music plays through your AirPods. You can talk to Siri through your AirPods. You can listen to audiobooks through your AirPods, and everything's worked through the AirPods. So you can be out running, you get a phone call, you answer, you talk on your AirPods. So that's great. On the older watches, you can make phone calls directly on the watch. You just lift the watch up to your mouth, you can talk, and it's got a microphone built in, the speaker's built in, you can have a conversation. But the older watches could not play music or podcasts or audiobooks through the built-in speaker. Don't know why. They're probably just worried about wasting battery life and running the battery down too quickly. The latest Apple Watch Series 10 can play through the built-in speaker. I don't often use it, but it can be nice sometimes. You just want to listen to some music or listen to an audiobook. You're sitting quietly and you can actually play it through the built-in speaker. AirPods work much better. So most of the time I have AirPods, and I have AirPods in my ears several hours a day normally, and it's just so convenient. You get alerts into your AirPods, you can talk, you can join phone calls, conference calls, and everything. We talked a little bit about connectivity. So as I said earlier, if you go for the cellular version, it's an extra £100. You're always connected. So if your phone has got a flat battery, I mean, that's a really useful case. You might be out, you might have your phone on you, your phone battery goes flat, you're at the station, you just want to call for a taxi or you want to call for someone to pick you up, you can still do it if you've got your Apple Watch. And so if you've got a cellular version, I love it. I think it's worth the extra £100 for it. You do need to pay a subscription though. So in addition to getting the cellular watch, you have to pay a subscription, which is about £6 per month. And it's always paired with your iPhone. So it always uses the same phone number. You don't get a different phone number. If you get an incoming call, both devices ring at the same time, your watch and your phone. And then you can answer on either device. You can make an outgoing call from either device, and you can send messages and SMS messages, etc. The only slight oddity, and I think this is still true, you can't send an SMS message directly from your watch unless your iPhone is turned on, because I think the SMS message has to be relayed through the iPhone. iMessage as you can, because iMessage go across the internet, but I think that's the one oddity, that your phone's got to be turned on to be able to relay SMSs. That certainly was the case, and I think it's still the case. It's very obscure thing. Emergency services we've talked about. This is what it looks like. So this is what you see. It says, if you're in a car crash, bike accident, you've fallen over, it might say it looks like you've had a fall, it looks like you've been in a crash. You get that little SOS slider. If you slide that to the right, it calls emergency 999, 911. If you don't, it'll give you the 10-second countdown unless you cancel it. And then your contacts get a message. So it'll say, Mum's had a hard fall, SOS, Mum called emergency services, or Mum did not respond, etc. And then if you scroll that, you'll be able to see their location. It's got Find My built in, which is just great. So it works both ways. I've got this is configurable. I've got everything set up so that my location is shared from my phone. So wherever my phone is, that's my location, unless my phone is not moving, my watch is moving, and then it shares my location from my watch. So if I go out without my phone, leave my phone at home, it still shows my true location from my watch, and vice versa. So if I leave the watch at home and go out with my phone, then it'll share my location from my phone. So that's really nice. So people can see my location through the Apple Watch. And again, if you've got a child or an elderly person, you can track their location. But also, the Apple Watch can find people and find devices. So you've got a little Find My app on the Apple Watch, and it will find where your contacts are, and it will find your devices. So you can tell it to ping your wallet or ping your keys or ping your AirPods case, and it will just do that and find things for you. So again, it's just got so much stuff built in, and it shows the distance. It tells you how close you are. So here it's looking for an iPhone, and it's saying your iPhone's 20 feet away. And as you walk around the house, you'll get closer and closer until it finds it. You've also got a little button, so you can press the button in Control Center, and that will make your phone play a sound, so you can easily find your phone from your watch. Yeah, here we go. If you tap the button, that button bottom right, that makes a sound on your phone, so you can hear it when you get close to it. This is a really nice little feature. I've used this a few times. So you can use the Apple Watch as a remote control for your iPhone camera. So you prop the iPhone up on a bench or a table or something, you point it at the group, you go back, and then first of all, you get a preview on your watch so you can see what your phone is seeing, and then you tap the button and that'll take a photograph or start a video recording. So that's just a handy little remote control. You can take a photograph and say, oh, Dave wasn't smiling in that picture, let's do it again, and you take another picture, and so on. It's got Apple Maps built in and directions. It's got driving directions, walking directions, turn-by-turn indicators, etc. So you can say, hey, the usual name, navigate to my local Sainsbury's, and it'll give you directions, and you can be walking down the street and it will give you a little haptic feedback. It says turn right into Clayton Street, and you turn right, it will say, walk on 200 meters and there's Sainsbury's in front of you. So that's, again, really nice. You don't need to have your phone with you. It's all just built in. And just as with the phone, I think it can download maps. So I've downloaded lots of maps for Ipswich and my local area and places I frequently visit. And I think the Apple Watch can download maps as well. So even without a connection, it knows where you are through GPS, because of course it's got GPS built in. It's picking up signals from satellites all the time. So even without a cellular connection, it doesn't need it if the map's downloaded. And then there's thousands and thousands of apps. So you've got apps for all sorts of different purposes. You've got apps to control garage doors. You've got apps to remind you of things. You've got so many apps to do all sorts of things. So I've got quite a few third-party apps on my watch. You can customize the layout either on the watch itself, or you can use the Apple Watch app on the phone. So on the iPhone, you get an app called Apple Watch, which is used to set everything up. So you can see, here's my Apple Watch, here's my faces. I've got probably 20 different watch faces. I can swipe left and right to select between them. And then down here, I've got control of notifications, the app view, general configurations, mobile service, display and brightness, gestures. So gestures, you can actually do you see there's a little picture of the hand in the bottom corner. You could do a 2-finger tap, and that'll activate the menu in some way. So if it says somebody's calling, do you want to answer? You can just go double tap with your fingers, or it might say it looks like your workout has ended, and you just do a double tap. So without actually using your right hand to press the watch button, if you've got your watch on the left hand, without doing that, you can do it with one hand. So if you're carrying some heavy shopping with your right hand, you can do basic controls on your watch just by tapping 2 fingers together. You can control the app view, the app layout. So when you launch an app, you press the digital crown and you get this screen. So you can see top left here, you've got the telephone and phone calls, you've got mail, you've got messages, you've got a relaxation app, you've got activity monitoring, running, workout activity, settings, etc. Or you can have that view as a list view where you scroll and it's in alphabetical order. If you have the grid view, then as you see in the right-hand display, you can change the layout. So I can actually drag these apps around. I like to have all my apps grouped together. This is actually my Apple Watch layout. So I've got podcast, music, and audio books at the top. Then I've got weather, activity monitoring. And then if I scroll down a little bit, I get to clock, timer, stopwatch, heart monitoring, oximeter, etc. Everything we've talked about is available on the Apple Watch Series 10. If you go for the Apple Watch Ultra, you get a big sturdy case. It's sort of quite rugged. It's a fair bit bigger and heavier, but you do get 2-day battery life. And you get a scuba diving mode where it monitors your depth, tells you about decompression time. It's got all the decompression algorithms built into it. And you perhaps wouldn't use it instead of a dive computer, but it's always there as a useful backup. And then just looking at the models, if you go to the Apple Store, so the Apple website, there's an Apple comparison chart where you can look at the different models. And if you're on a Mac, you can normally get 3 in. So you can choose, here you can see I've chosen the Apple Watch SE, top left, the Apple Watch Series 10 in the center, and the Apple Watch Ultra 2. And then you can compare them. So you can see the prices. So the Apple Watch SE starts at £289 for the basic version, which is GPS. If you want the cellular version, then that's £389. Oh no, sorry, no, it's cheaper than that. Basic GPS version is 219. GPS plus cellular is 289. So that's a really good deal. Apple Watch Series 10, which has got some extra benefits, like the ECG function and the always-on display and the brightest display, is £399 or £499. And then the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is £799. So I always go for the Apple Watch, the main series, Series 9, Series 10, etc. And I always go for the cellular one. And you'll see down here, you've got the different case sizes. And if I scroll down on that page, you'll see the Apple Watch SE only got to 1,000 nits. The Series 10 is 2,000 nits, so it's 40% brighter. And it's better, it's got a wider viewing angle. The Apple Watch Ultra 2 has got an even brighter display at 3,000 nits. So that tells you how bright the display is. The Apple Watch SE doesn't have the ECG monitoring, which the other two do. But it does have high and low heart rate notifications, irregular rhythm notifications. It warns if you've got low cardio fitness, but it doesn't have the blood oxygen app. Whereas the Series 10 and the Apple Watch Ultra 2 do have the blood oxygen app, providing you're not in the United States. They've all got sleep tracking, but only the Series 10 and Ultra 2 have got sleep apnea notifications. They've all got basic vital signs like heart rate, respiratory rate, and sleep duration. The Apple Watch Series 10 also gives you wrist temperature. That's not especially useful. It's not a very accurate measurement of temperature. It's mainly used for cycle tracking, as in period tracking. So it can tell you if you're of that age, it will tell you when you're most likely to be ovulating if you're trying to get pregnant. And then, temperature sensing is also used if you go swimming. So if I go swimming, I tell it I'm swimming, and when it records my workout, it amazingly tells you how many lengths you've done because it uses the accelerometer and the gyroscope to work out when you've got to the end of the pool and turned round. And you tell it you're doing a 25-meter pool, and it works out how many lengths you've done and how far you've swam. But also now it monitors the temperature and records the temperature. They've all got the emergency SOS that we've talked about. They've all got emergency international calling. They've all got the fall detection and crash detection. The Apple Watch Ultra 2's also got a siren built in. So if you've fallen down a ravine and you can't speak for some reason, then it's got a siren, and it's quite a loud siren, I believe. They're all waterproof to 50 meters, waterproof, swim-proof. You can go snorkeling with them. The Ultra 2 goes down to 100-meter water resistance, and you can use it for scuba diving to 40 meters. They all come in cellular and Wi-Fi versions. I think the GPS is a bit better on the Ultra 2, but it's superb on all of them. And that's everything. Have you got any questions so far?
Fantastic. Let's just check chat. I don't think so. Billy asked about Spotify, but the answer to that's yes. Will it work with AirTags? She says yes. I didn't know that.
So oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Temperature sensor used for more. Sheeta, do you want to just...
The temperature sensor it actually told me when I was sick. What it will do, you have to let it, you have to have these certain settings available for a week. And what it will do, it will give you a baseline, and it will then start measuring everything based on that baseline. So there are times when my temperature is below the baseline or above the baseline. And when it is above the baseline, especially in the Vitals app, it will show you. And for 4 days, when I was ill about 2 weeks ago, it showed me that my temperature was abnormal throughout those 4 days.
That's interesting. That's really useful.
Yeah.
And it actually does that with quite a few things. So the Apple Watch will track all sorts of things like your breathing rate and your walking pace and your gait and all sorts of things. And then if something changes, it will alert you. And you can look at graphs. And so you can look at your graphs of your walking pace, your resting heart rate, all sorts of basic measurements. And then if something's off, then you can either look at it, or if it's gone off significantly and significant degradation, then it will alert you. So yeah, that's really useful.
Fantastic. What Jill just said, I can honestly say the Apple Watch Series 10 is the most useful bit of tech I've ever owned. When I get to read the user manual. Yes. Oops.
It is overwhelming. There's screens and features I'm still discovering on it because there's just so much in it. And I use these things really heavily. And I know everything on most of the devices I use, but the Apple Watch has just got so much in it. I was just going to show you this quickly. This is a really nice little display. So this is on the Apple website. This is, if you go to Apple Watch and then compare watches, then you can choose here what you want to compare. So you can say, let's have a look. There's different colors. So you can see what the colors look like. There's a natural titanium, gold titanium, black, etc. I always go for black. I like the black. You've got the pricing here. You've got all the different features. And then down here, you've got heart rate. Well, it tells you the dimensions. It tells you all the different features and so on. But the nice thing here, if you're interested in buying a second-hand one, you say, well, I might go for Series 5, or I might go for Series 7, or do I go for a Series 8? And you can choose and compare that way. And then you can scroll down and look at the features. You say, well, they've all got the ECG app, but if I go to a Series 4, for example, you see that I don't think Series 4 has the ECG app, or maybe it's Series 3. Yeah, so Series 3 doesn't have the ECG app, you see. Whereas Series 4 and 5 do. And then if you compare, say, 6 and 7, I think you'll find the blood oximeter is on Series 7, but not 6. So you've got all these different features here. And it's just a really good way of comparing what you're getting. As long as the battery is good, I think Series 5 onwards is great. It looks almost the same. It works almost the same way. You'll see it's got a bigger black bezel around the side. The display isn't quite so bright. But it's a really fantastic device. And when you go beyond 5, you're getting things like temperature measurement and crash detection and brighter display, better viewing angle, better battery life. But it's not that massive. So Series 5 onward is fantastic. But as John said, just check out the battery life.
Paul Seeger asks actually a related question. Can you give any idea of how long the Apple Watch will last and give reliable service? It's a lot to lay out, so I'd be looking for it to last a few years. I assume they do.
They do. I've often had an Apple Watch for 3 years, but I tend to upgrade at least every 2 or 3 years. It's pointless upgrading every year because the difference is really minor. But in my experience, yeah, the battery life gets a bit shorter. You notice the battery life degrading. I use it really heavily. I use it for everything. I'm constantly using my watch. If you do a workout, that drains the battery more. But generally, my battery life will last until 9 p.m. So even if I'm fairly active with it, I'll go to 9 or 10 p.m. and then I'll put it on charge before I go to bed. And quite often I use it for sleep tracking as well. So that's the main thing that degrades is the battery.
Yeah.
Apart from that, they're absolutely fantastic. They're pretty solid. They're pretty robust. Try hard not to scratch it, but the screen is pretty good. It's got it's a Gorilla Glass screen, I think, or is it Iron Glass? If you go for the titanium watches, you get a quartz glass screen, which should be better in terms of being scratch proof. But yeah, I think they're all very good.
Have you ever actually had a battery replaced, Paul?
No, I haven't. No, I've always never needed to.
So, Billy, I think you're going to have to check that out on the Apple website. Billy asked the cost of a battery.
I'm not sure.
Is it like the iPhone in respect of optimum charging?
It might charge to 80% and then finish charging in the morning, but I've never turned it on if it does.
Yes, it's like it does that as well. Yes.
Okay. What I do with my devices, I've got a really puny charger. I think I've got something like a 15 or 20 watt charger that's plugged into my nightstand. And that charges everything overnight. So it does my watch, it does my iPad, it does my AirPods if I need charging. And it charges very, very slowly. And I think that's really good for battery health and longevity, because if you use a high power charger, especially if you use a MagSafe connector for charging, then it's getting very hot. The battery gets hot. That degrades the battery. It doesn't like the rapid charging. And in my experience, I've had to have iPhone batteries replaced more often if I use the fast charging. If I do very slow charging, and I do it on all my devices now, my watch might take 4 hours to charge overnight. My iPhone might take 4 hours to charge overnight because of the power of the charger. Then I think that extends the battery life. So I'd recommend people do that. I know lots of people are keen to have fast charging. I've got a fast charger. If I'm in a hurry, I think I need to go out in half an hour, I need to charge my phone, then I'll use a fast charger. But for normal overnight use, I'll never use a fast charger.
Mark's just been on the Apple support website and says it costs £95 to replace a watch battery.
Phew. That's useful. Thank you very much.
It's 9:15. I really think that we should give this poor man a rest. Ladies and gents, could I please ask you to unmute for a moment and just show your appreciation? Paul, this has been fantastic and exactly what I'd hoped for this evening. Thank you for a brilliant meeting.
Yeah, really good. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. You're very welcome.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.